Well, welcome everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and had a great Thanksgiving holiday, spent time with family and friends. We're thrilled that you can join us for our first of what I hope will be many monthly webinars. The purpose of this webinar and others is to really allow us and you to connect on a variety of topics which we hope you'll find useful. The topics will range from scientific, technical. We'll do things that connect people like Tim and Frank, who are very experts in social media. We'll have professional development topics to make us all better in our profession. We'll talk about the importance of decision support. We'll talk about how important it is to communicate weather information, climate information, etc. So we want you to be involved. But anyway, thanks all of you could join us. Thanks for Tim for helping set us up, for Jonathan for being your Frank in social media, and the support of the NWA, and hopefully Janice will join us here pretty soon. As many of you know, I think all of you know, I'm the Commissioner of Committees, and it's in my desire to get the entire membership engaged in what we're doing. We've got an exciting 2016 ahead of us. I hope you all have some great holiday, Christmas plans, but before we get to that, we thought it might be good to hear about where the NWA is going in 2016. So it's really my great pleasure on behalf of Mike Vesio, my co-chair, to introduce our president-elect, the president for 2016, Dave Freeman, good friend, colleague, a longtime member, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, distinguished in his own right, a great guy, and someone I know who'll do well in leading the NWA forward in 2016. He's got a great vision for 2016 and better science, better communication, better results. I hope you've seen the abstract page. I'm going to go over there in a sec. I'm going to show that. Let's see. Let me share my screen first. I want you just to see that. So I'm going to share my screen for just a second, Dave, so we can all see our wonderful 41st Annual Meeting website that's up and taking abstracts. So if you haven't seen that, you got a beautiful picture of the waterfront there where we'll have our meeting at the downtown Marriott. Again, you'll see, I'm just scrolling down, you've seen sort of this before, but I wanted to let you know some key dates that are coming up for the 2016 annual meeting. Mike Vesio, we're excited to work with Dave, support Dave in making his dream. You see there the theme that I just mentioned that Dave will, I'm sure, will talk about as we move forward. So I just wanted to let you know a little bit about that. So I'm going to get out of there and go back out of the screen sharing mode. And welcome Dave Freeman. So Dave, looking forward to your remarks on how we're going to move forward in 2016. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thanks, Ken, and I want to thank all the team that put this effort together here this evening and has kicked off this great series of webinars. One of the things that I think all of the folks who serve the NWA are interested in is really kind of building better day-to-day, week-to-week contact with the membership so that we can do a better job of sharing the benefits of being a part of the National Weather Association. And I think this is a great step toward that because we're going to have another opportunity to confer together, to learn together in these monthly webinars. So thanks for putting all that together, Ken, and the team that worked on that. And I'm delighted to help kick off the series. But, you know, I would be very remiss if I did not begin by taking just a moment to congratulate our colleagues from the 2015 annual meeting just concluded in Oklahoma City. John Ferry, Pat Marsh, and President Liz Page really set a high bar for all of us in 2016, a record-breaking meeting in terms of attendance, and I think it was also a smash the record on abstract submissions. And I think that everybody that came together in that meeting in Oklahoma City really felt the spirit of the NWA. And by that I mean all of the different constituencies coming together under one roof to be together, to learn together. And that was just a fantastic model of what our annual meeting should be. So Ken and Mike Vesio and I have been joking about this for some months now. We don't know whether to be happy or sad after that because the bar has been set so high. How in the world can we follow that up? But we're sure going to try. So, Ken, as you mentioned, one of the things that I was asked to do as president-elect is to think about a theme for 2016 and for our annual meeting. And as I thought about it, and I thought about what's been going on in our field in these last few years and over the last several NWA annual meetings, I came up with, I think, a theme which incorporates the movement that we're seeing in the field of meteorology. One, of course, is always better science. The second is better communications, and that all leads to better results. And this is not to say by any means that we don't feel that the American Weather Enterprise does not do a good job. Of course, we have the finest weather service in the world. We have a fantastic partnership between government, broadcasters, private meteorology, academia, and that's what the NWA celebrates. Instead, what I was thinking about when I came up with those words was the idea that we're never satisfied. Every time we have a busted forecast, we want to learn from it. Every time we have a severe weather event, we want to learn, how can we do better? What can we learn that will enable us to serve the people that are counting on us better? So in that spirit, I offered the 3 points for 2016. In terms of better science, as anyone knows who's been to an NWA annual meeting, the NWA annual meeting is where the rubber meets the road. It's where we're going to see research that we can all learn from and take home and use the next week when we're back at work making a forecast, having to deal with severe weather. In terms of better communications, I think the NWA has been a leader in welcoming social scientists into our conversation. I think all of us as meteorologists are realizing more and more that the best warning in the world doesn't do any good if it's not received and understood so that it can be acted upon. So as we move forward into 2016, I wanted to include that point to, again, welcome social scientists into our conversation to help us learn how to more effectively communicate so that we then, in the end, get better results. All of us know that we can never have a zero count for weather-related fatalities or injuries in a year. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. But on the other hand, I know I speak for a lot of people when I say that those of us in the weather business, we feel every one of those. And we want to strive toward that day when we might have a zero fatality count. So, Ken, I'm really just kind of throwing a challenge out there to all of our NWA members. Come to Norfolk. Bring your good ideas. Bring the research that you're doing in your local weather service offices, your local classrooms and laboratories, in your private meteorology companies, and of course, I challenge all my broadcasters to bring ideas, research, studies, help us to learn and do better in our work. And then I know that some in the social sciences are already in our house, they're already in the tent, and they're bringing some of those kinds of things to Norfolk as well. I'm actually trying to cook up a little something myself that will look at the communication of weather forecasts to the public. So I hope everybody will kind of get excited about those themes and be ready to come to Norfolk. And I don't know if we can eclipse. Can we beat Oklahoma City? I don't know, but we're sure going to try.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate that opening statements. It really is a big challenge. I'm curious, Dave, as you think about and think ahead to 2016 and our annual meeting, but also the specialty meetings and maybe our local chapter colleagues as well, what do you think some of our challenges that you'd like to either tackle or address as you think about 2016, given your theme? You know, what are some challenges you'd like to look at exploring, maybe not solving even, but at least, you know, starting to have those conversations?
Well, I think one of them that's on our horizon, Ken, is GOES-R. Next year is going to be a pivotal time, and so I know that you and Mike and I have been talking about making sure that we're serving that need in our community. We need to help every member who comes to the annual meeting in Norfolk walk away better prepared to incorporate GOES-R data into the forecasting process and to use it to better the work that we do for those who are counting on us. And I think you singled out something which is very fitting given where the meeting is going to be in Norfolk, and that is how do we deal with some of the coastal issues. Obviously, there have been some changes in the way that some of the tropical products have been issued and formulated, worded here in this last couple of years. Some of it as a result of what we learned from Sandy. So coastal issues, I think, are something that we want to also provide some space for so that those who are on the East Coast who are dealing with those issues will get a chance to walk away from this conference and learn something that they can take home and really put to good use.
Yeah, you brought up a big issue, I think, for our enterprise in terms of, coastal flooding, inundation. Clearly there's a lot in the headlines and the news, with climate change, etc. And there's been a lot of focus. There's been a lot of cooperation between the National Weather Service and the National Ocean Service on better ecological forecasting, for example, nearshore, the marine environment. And so where do you think the NWA in 2016 should move forward in the area of, let's say, coastal flooding and inundation, since it does affect so many people, Dave?
Well, I think that the NWA is unique, Ken, as you know, because you know I've known each other for years and years through this organization, and I see several of my other friends, down here at the bottom of the screen that also I've known for a long time. And we're each from different walks of life in the meteorology community. And I think that's where the NWA has and I would argue a unique responsibility, because nowhere are you going to find all of the different parties coming together under one roof like you do at the NWA Annual Meeting. So not only do we need to tackle some of those coastal issues and marine issues and offer a platform and a venue for those things to take place, but we also really need to provide a space for there to be interdisciplinary learning, so that broadcasters can come and they can learn from their government colleagues, from emergency managers who are starting to attend the NWA Annual Meeting in greater numbers, as well as the National Weather Service folks who are there, the other NOAA folks. So I think that the NWA has a better than most is positioned to provide that kind of venue and that kind of platform for interdisciplinary learning. Get the constituents together in a room and learn from each other, as opposed to being segregated into separate parts.
Hey, Ken, Dave, can I come in?
Somebody speaking?
Hey, Ken, this is Tim.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I want to just kind of play off of what Dave just said. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about attending the conferences, and Dave kind of touched on it, is just the variety of people are there and just the intimate atmosphere. Some conferences you go to and it's just so overwhelming. There's just, there's lots of people there, but there's so many people there that you just don't see anybody. Whereas the NWA is I always thought it's more intimate. I built much stronger friendships and relationships just by, hanging out in between sessions and, talking with the TV folks and emergency managers and the social scientists. It just is, I've always really enjoyed just going to the meetings and just spending time and getting to know people in a relaxed atmosphere, and I just think that's one of the advantages that the NWA meetings have.
I couldn't agree more, Tim. I've always felt that about the NWA, and it is a place where the lines between the different constituencies seem to get erased. And I've developed so many friendships over the years that have led to good things, partnerships where we were able to, reach across the aisle, so to speak, and work together. And that's, I think, a unique thing that the NWA Annual Meeting has to offer to those who maybe have never been to one before. And I think when you look at GOZAR, there's a lot of knowledge transfer that has to take place from the folks who are bringing that online to all of the different constituencies. All of us are going to be using those products, so we all need to be able to learn about it. Yeah. The coastal flooding issue or coastal concerns, another issue where clearly you can't just have one group of people sitting isolated in a room. That's all of us learning together how to communicate better, how to effectively use what each other provides to, in the end, serve the folks who are at home.
Yeah, you mentioned communication. So Jonathan and Frank, who I'm watching on their screen, they've been forerunners with Tim in use of social media. Of course, Frank is our social media committee chair, and Jonathan has been very successful at actually doing things like this, having webinars. I was fortunate to be on one of his shows some time ago. Jonathan, how do you see this venue, this webinar venue, helping to better connect the NWA, in your opinion, based upon your experiences?
Well, one of the best parts about this webinar platform is that people that can't come to the annual meetings or any annual meetings across the country can come to these and watch on YouTube, and they can eventually, I can see this going to Twitter or even Facebook, so that people can ask questions of their own, even if they can't attend on the screen, just like you see our friends below us. It's all reached, not even nationally, just around the world as well, to talk about literally anything. And I know the plans with this seminar are to go to topics we've got planned out for the next year, and Ken can talk more about that than I can, but there's so much we can do with this, and there's really no limitations except for what maybe technology can bring us.
Jonathan, you're still in the academic environment there at FSU. How do you see the academic colleagues that we usually have in good attendance at the annual meeting and other meetings, how do you see them fitting into this theme and where the NWA is going in 2016? Any thoughts there?
Academically, I mean, we've been doing the posters and the standard presentations at every meeting, and I think over the next couple of years, I think we'll start to see maybe tablets being brought to poster sessions where people can present from maybe their own college campuses or something like that, or some other electronic formats. I know in Madison we had the government problems where we had to bring in seminars from wherever those people were because they couldn't travel. I could see more of that in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good points. So, Frank, as chair of our social media committee, you've been heavily involved in promoting not only this meeting, of course, but other meetings. So I appreciate all your help, speed mentoring, etc. So, social media is a unique platform, as especially Tim and Jonathan know. How do you see social media both promoting this meeting, Frank, but also moving the NWA forward in maybe some new ways? I know you've got some ideas on maybe how the NWA can better leverage YouTube and other social media activities to get the word out.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things that we want to do. Matter of fact, we just had a meeting with some of our committee members last night to talk about the way forward. To give you a couple of examples, one of the things that we really talked about is we want to keep on as much of the cutting edge of this kind of social media as we can. So we're looking into things like using Periscope at some of the meetings, and to help allow, for instance, some of the people who are making posters to get a little bit more out of it, maybe give a couple-minute elevator speech or something like that. We still have details to work out, but an example of using another type of social media so that when somebody goes to the meeting, they're not just restricted to talking to the people who are there looking at their poster, but they can give a little bit of a talk about the work they've done and share it with more and more people. Mm-hmm. YouTube certainly is something that we're striving to add more and more of. This is a good example. These webinars that we want to have on a monthly basis going forward, and certainly we can see things maybe such as event-based type of webinars. We have an awful lot of meteorological experts that are part of this NWA, and we also have a lot of social scientists. Mm-hmm. So it's possible that we see a very large event coming forward, like another Sandy or a Katrina, or a really major, like a 2011 tornado outbreak, and we can get some of the experts who aren't being directly affected from the NWA to have some kind of a hangout and be able to share their information and answer questions that people may have when the offices that are directly involved, either the television stations or weather service offices or private companies that are just stuck straight out dealing with the event, then maybe we can answer some of the questions in there as well.
Yeah, great points. Thanks. Dave, as a broadcaster and our president-elect, I mean, you have a unique vantage point as you're looking through 2016. Broadcasters, as you know better than me, are a integral and intimate and a vital part of the NWA. How do you see broadcasters, taking the next steps? How do we make this theme especially the communication part, of course. How do we better connect with broadcasters so they can do their jobs better? We can better communicate weather information, because as you know, broadcasters are really at a pivotal part of our profession as the spokesperson for our enterprise. How do we make this meeting maybe even more special? Any thoughts as you think about our next year's meeting?
Well, as you know, Ken, we've got a history of having a really excellent program on Sunday of our conference for broadcasters specifically. And we're going to have another good one, I'm sure, coming up in 2016. But here's an interesting thing. I don't know about anybody else, but when I look around that room on Sunday, it makes me smile when I see so many of my National Weather Service colleagues, so many of my NOAA colleagues, so many of the academic folks who have come early. They've come on Sunday because they want to see what the broadcasters are learning. So I'm just going to say, you guys, come on in on Sunday. Yes, it's the Broadcasters Workshop, and there are some things that are done specifically for that population. But everybody is welcome to come in there. And I think that then goes the other way, too. Broadcasters, you don't have to go home on Monday. In fact, it makes me smile when I see broadcasters that are staying for the whole conference, so that we see that exchange between weather service people and broadcasters and EMs and academic folks all together. So I think that I kind of want to challenge my fellow broadcasters to think about finding ways to be a little bit more involved in the larger conference. We need to see some more broadcasters who are actually presenting papers and doing posters, not just on Sunday, but right on through the rest of the week. And again, for all of you that are not in that group, man, come on and join us on Sunday. Find out what your colleagues are in broadcasting are struggling with and trying to learn and trying to improve. And I think you'll get a better feel for what we do. And this is very much, of course, in the spirit of the integrated warning teams that we're seeing all across the country. My point of view is the NWA was doing integrated warning teams before IWTs were cool. We've been doing this for years and years and years, bringing all these people together and enabling them to have that constituent relationships.
Great points. Hey, Tim, do we have an opportunity? Can we hear or get any questions from anybody else that's online? Do we have that capability?
Yeah, actually, if you're watching via YouTube, there should be a place to ask questions, and we actually had a question come in from It's All Eternal. And the question, and we can kind of broaden this out, but basically the question is, what do you recommend for students working towards a meteorology career? And I know that, we talked about the broadcasters on Sunday at the NWA conference, but if I'm not mistaken, there's also a student session on Sunday as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Tim, and I'm going to brag on Ken a little bit here. So, Ken, you be quiet for a minute. Ken has been really determined in moving forward our efforts to reach out to students and to give them mentor relationships that they can utilize to accelerate their learning curve. And I've been lucky enough to be part of the speed mentoring program that's done on Sunday afternoon at the last several conferences, and it's just a fantastic opportunity. So students, I would say one of the best things that you could do would be to go right now, tonight, to the NWA homepage, go to the mentoring page, and look at all of those folks who have volunteered their time and said, hey, I welcome the opportunity to be a mentor. All you got to do is find somebody that is in your field or that seems like they might have something to offer you. Send them an email. I think that's a great way to accelerate your curve. And I'll just tell you, when we were getting ready for this, Ken sent out a questionnaire that said, what's the one thing that you wish you had known when you were young? And I thought about it for a couple minutes, and you know what the answer I gave was? I said, I wish I had known how much I didn't know. So students, this is a great organization for you to come in, be welcomed with open arms, and then find those people who can be your mentors. The only thing I ever ask to anybody myself is, I just look at them and I say, pay it forward.
Well, yeah, so what a great opportunity for students. I wish, I had this opportunity when I was their age, and that's why we're doing that speed mentoring. And, like you said, Dave, there's so many opportunities, so many things that I wish I would have known. And really, quite frankly, the only way to really find out is you need to get engaged and start talking to people. In person is, more better, bad English, but you know what I mean. And by being there and just hanging out with people and just talking to people, I think you can really find out about what's possible and things that you haven't thought about and people that you couldn't talk to otherwise. So so you're right. So there is no silver bullet, but being there and also maybe listening to some of these things, talking to some of your colleagues, keeping engaged, being a member of a local chapter, that's how you're going to find your dream job, I think.
I'm glad you mentioned local chapters too, Ken, because that was actually on my list of things that I wanted to mention. We have an active local NWA AMS chapter here in Wichita. We're going to be meeting next week, and I think that's another great place for students to get involved and to have the opportunity to really learn from working professionals across all fields. And that's another thing I would say to students when you come to an NWA meeting, whether it's a local chapter or whether it's the annual meeting. Don't think that what you think you're going to do right now when you're 18 is what you're going to end up doing. You may end up meeting someone at an NWA meeting and discovering a whole new area that you're interested in that you never even thought of before. And that's, again, one of the great things about bringing all parties together under the NWA tent at the same time.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, Tim, did we have any other questions? You're on mute. Are you on mute?
Yeah, no, we don't have any other questions. Again, if you want to ask a question there on the YouTube page, there's a place to submit a question and just type it in and we'll happily answer it.
So one of the other things that Dave and I and Mike have talked about, and this is sort of, to broaden it out to everyone, is especially you, Frank, we're trying to get, committees involved and engaged in the NWA. And of course, the annual meeting is one of many opportunities. So maybe Frank as a committee chair, then maybe if Jonathan or anybody or Dave or anybody wants to jump in, how do we better connect NWA committees to the annual meeting? What are your thoughts there in terms of, we've Rich Akulski, who's one of our committee chairs, Special Ed Ops. He's going to be our poster coordinator, for example. How do we get folks? Today we had a program subcommittee, and Jen Henderson from Virginia Tech, who's the co-chair of the Societal Impacts Committee, she's been wanting to get involved, and so she's looking to get involved in the annual meeting. What do you think, Frank, as a committee chair, and then maybe Jonathan or Tim or Dave, you want to chime in? What are your thoughts about getting committees and committee members involved in NWA activities?
Well, there's certainly plenty of things we can do. I'm always looking for that. Just for example. It tends to be a situation for the social media committee, certainly for those who follow our different links and our efforts. There's a lot of work that's put in by the social media committee during the meetings themselves to keep everybody up to date, to keep relevant tweaks, to put together the Storify pages at the end. And we can always use people who are interested in that type of thing to help out with those type of efforts. And of course, social media by itself is a good way to link others who are interested in helping out with the different committees as well as the meeting itself. So it really opens up a communication that maybe would be more difficult to do if you're just trying to send it through email or make a phone call here and there. I think it allows for more intermingling of thoughts and people from the different groups to work together towards making our meeting as great as possible.
Great, thanks, Frank. So, how about Tim, or Jonathan? Go ahead. What are your thoughts? Because both of you have been involved, right? So I know you have a unique vantage point. Jonathan, hope you're not frozen there. There you go. So, what do you think? Because you've been doing some interesting things there where you are.
Well, I think just based on my first experience, which was in Madison, by the way, I'm just walking around and didn't know who to talk to, didn't know what to do. I think maybe one of the things, and I know space is limited at some of the poster sessions, but maybe sticking tables at the end of the poster racks and having maybe a committee member at one of those tables, and they can reach out to somebody looking at one of the posters, just walking around, and the students or anyone else really could just walk up to those tables and have them display what they are, who they are. That way they're not having to go to the web page to click on a link or something to find out more information.
A little personal touch, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Tim, what do you think? I know you've been very involved, especially in social media, but in many things. How do we get people engaged, whether to be on committees, but also committee members to be engaged in the annual meeting and any specialty meetings?
Sure. I think what we're doing right now is the very thing to do that by getting our faces out there and getting the discussion out there. You see somebody's face, you're much more likely to be able to you walk up to them and say, you don't know me, but let me introduce myself. I saw you on this hangout or on this GoToMeeting when you were talking about Gozar. I think by doing hangouts with different committees and different groups within the NWA will help just kind of bring everybody in, get everybody involved, and then we're all just more friendly and just have a better idea of whose name goes with what face. I do, when I'm like Jonathan, the first conference I went to for the NWA was up in Madison, and I walked in there, I'm like, I don't know anybody here, and then over time, you quickly get to meet people and to have discussions. I think these hangouts or the GoToMeetings will be a great way to get different faces of the NWA out in front of people. And then that just encourages more involvement from other people at the meetings. It encourages them to go to those meetings. It encourages people to who may not normally go to the meeting to go there. And then it just helps build that conversation. Because, like I said, once you see somebody, you whether it's true or not, you tend to feel like you're a little more friendly. You know them a little better, and you're much more likely to have a discussion with them.
Yeah. Hey, I got to tell a story that relates to that exact thing, Tim. A few years ago, I had the occasion to be goofing around a little bit with some isentropic products in our forecasting. Well, if you've been around the NWA for a long time, there was a particular guy who was one of our past presidents that passed away way too early, Dr. Jim Moore from St. Louis University. So I had sat through a bunch of his presentations about isentropics and so forth, and I knew him. We'd met and shook hands and so forth. Well, I just said, you know what? I need to learn about this and find a way to operationalize it in my office. So at the meeting, I walked up to him. I said, hey, could I buy you lunch and ask you some questions about isentropics and in forecasting? And he's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And he did. And he shared some thoughts with me, and I took some notes. Went back home, over that next year was using these different things, learning things. Next year we come to NWA Annual Meeting. I said, can I buy you lunch again? He's like, absolutely. So we sat down. I asked him all kinds of questions. Okay, we saw this, but what does that, all this. Here's Dr. Moore, president of the NWA, widely respected professor at St. Louis University, a great meteorological program. And he's making time to have lunch with me and answer my questions one-on-one. And I can just tell you, it changed my life in terms of life as a forecaster, opened up whole new windows, whole new ways of looking at things, and improved my skills. And I put that right down to that exact spirit that you just talked about, Tim, of an NWA annual meeting.
Yeah, that was great.
Hey, real quick, another question just came in. And maybe, Frank, you could answer this one. Is there a Facebook group that all NWA attendees can keep in touch with?
We do set up a Facebook page every year for the meeting, so we'll be setting up one. Now, actually, that the call for abstracts is out, I'll probably get on it so that by the first of the year it's already set up. But I set up one specifically for each year, and then we'll blast that information out through our normal Facebook and our Twitter and our Google Plus and our LinkedIn and all our different accounts that we have, so people are aware that if you're looking for information that's particularly for that particular meeting, that's the page to go to. And I encourage everybody else who's going to, as they learn about what they're going to do, go to that page, share information with each other. If you want to have a group meeting, maybe you say, look, I'm really interested in learning about isentropics, for example. You might get 5 or 6 people saying, yeah, I'd really like to too, and then somebody steps up and say, you know what? Well, if that's the case, I'd be glad to meet with you over lunch. We can find a place where 8 or 10 of us can sit down and you can ask me some questions or something like that to set up the networking. So we will be setting up a Facebook page specifically for the 2016 annual meeting, and I'll make sure it gets out there right after the holidays.
Great. Thanks for bringing it up, Tim, and thanks for Frank for your comments. So we were talking about students and early career professionals earlier, and so we talked about some ways they could get involved, and so speed mentoring is one. Certainly, we want them to come to the annual meeting. So if for the students, early career professionals that may be watching or maybe see this recorded, what advice can you give them? What would you based on maybe some of your experiences, what advice would you give students and early career professionals about our profession, about our meeting, about next year, about the NWA, that could allow them to have success both professionally and personally? Any thoughts from anyone on the Hangouts this night?
I can answer that. The first thing, and it's usually the easy one, is to bring business cards. The easiest way to talk to somebody and get a topic or a conversation started. The second one, make sure you go to the speed mentoring. That's where you're going to meet the most amount of people the quickest. The third one, and I'm hoping this is happening in Norfolk, but I'm not sure if the master class is being presented there as well. I've been to both of those events. Both are fantastic, and they're both very quick conversation starters. The master class a couple of years ago that I went to, I expected to be learning a lot more. Instead, I communicated a lot more than I actually learned, although I didn't learn nothing, of course. I learned quite a bit.
Is that the one? Excuse me. Is that the one run by the WAF committee, Jonathan?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know that Dan Gallagher, who's taken over for Christina, as far as I know, he's planning on doing that again. But I'll remind him and I'll talk to him about
it. But anything like that, where you're sitting down at tables just for a lunch or anything, are great events to go to. Of course, go to the presentations, go to the seminars. But when you sit down at those seminars, make sure you're talking to the person to your left and to your right. A lot of people just go in and sit down and then just listen the whole time, don't use their mouth. Make sure you're doing both.
Yeah, good points.
One thing I would add to that is that all of us who are speed mentors have a mentor ribbon at the bottom of the name tag. So don't feel like if you're a student, you can only talk to them during the speed mentoring session. That ribbon is there so that they're willing and able to help you out with any questions you might have throughout the entire conference, not in just that couple hour of time frame on Sunday. So take advantage of that opportunity. When you see somebody with that, if you have a question, feel free to ask. That's why we're all there with those ribbons on our tags.
And in fact, as you all know, we have our online mentoring connections, which we started last April, and that continues to grow. I've added a few mentors onto that list, even actually since the annual meeting. So a great resource in addition to what you said, it's right on. This online carries that conversation forward or precedes the annual meeting or specialty meeting. You can meet people online, so I think it's a great resource.
Hey, this question just came in that kind of plays into that. It wants to know, we do have a Facebook and LinkedIn presence, but they've seen the interchange kind of decreased over time, and they were kind of wondering how can the NWA get more members involved, maybe outside of the conferences in those discussion areas.
Yeah, I'll let everybody jump in. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's the whole point of that online mentoring, is to have those conversations outside the annual meeting, because a lot of people aren't there for a variety of reasons. Even if you are there, you might have had the chance. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of venues, and NWA, one of them is, joining a committee. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've gotten out of being a member or chair of so many AMS and NWA boards and committees. I can't count. Always gotten a lot out of it, even if it's not related to my job. I've met so many interesting people. I give you numerous examples. We started a board for the mentoring program with the AMS on the board for private sector meteorologists. We did a teaching excellence award for the AMS, which didn't exist before, and I got to call up Lance Bozart, who's one of our perennial NWA members as the first winner. I couldn't think of a better person to win that first award, for example. With Wendy Ebshar, started the local chapter of the year award. So again, being a member, a committee member, it opens up so many opportunities. You get to meet some really interesting people. It's actually, quite frankly, one of the best reasons to go to the annual meeting, because I get to see so many people because I've been a member. You know them already, so it's family. It really does enhance not only the annual meeting, but just being a member of the NWA.
I like the idea of using these platforms to communicate, Tim. I know that whenever Frank puts something up on LinkedIn for the NWA, I'm always right on it, and he helps to keep me, up to date. The NWA Broadcasters Facebook group is fairly active. A lot of good information flows through that as well. And I know that the NWA Facebook
pictures, new forecast techniques and remote sensing, and student opportunities and mentoring. So you see each one of those is uniquely situated and should give you some information that I hope will be relevant, interesting, and valuable to you. So Dave, on behalf of the group here that's with us and all the people that helped put this together, I want to thank you for being our guest speaker for this first inaugural webinar. Looking forward with Mike and working with you on the 2016 annual meeting.
I am too, Ken. I think we've got a great team working on that, and I think we're going to have an excellent time in Norfolk, again, learning together and learning how to do a better job to support the people who are counting on us. That's no matter which part of the weather enterprise that you're part of. That's the end thing. That's the end goal, is to serve the people who are counting on us better. And I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to more great webinars. Congratulations to you and your team, to Trish and everybody, for putting this series together. I think it's going to be a great NWA member benefit.
All right, thanks, Dave. So thanks, Tim, for helping us set this up, Jonathan and Frank for being on this call and Hangouts. It's good seeing you and talking with you. And unless there's anything else, I think we're going to conclude this Hangouts within the hour. So again, thank you very much. I wish you all a great holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and looking forward to working with each of you in 2016.
Very good. Bye-bye.